how exactly. And we'll see how exactly it is done through communication in the coming slides. Coming on to the definition, like I mentioned, product development process refers to all stages involved in bringing a product from concept or idea through market release and beyond. So, and beyond is an important point here because, like I said, that the process does not end when once your product has been launched to the market. It's an iterative process, and if you do not make it iterative, your product will probably fail after some time. In other words, product development incorporates a product's entire journey. Again, quotes on entire because, like I said, from marketing to sales to production to development to costs, we do all of the things here. Moving on. So, like I told you, that we're talking about everything that is happening in the product. But there are four major teams that are involved in this process, and that is one, the product team. The product team has different roles, such as the product manager, associate product manager, the product lead, and they overlook the entire product. In a way, they're not focused on specific. They're not focused on specific domains. Rather, they see the whole execution of the product. And yes, in a product team, there's not only one person. There are several people. There's a hierarchy for that as well, as we have in other teams. Then there is design team, right? So, like I told you, how design has gained traction recently in all of the markets, and UI UX design, graphic design, be it any kind of design, it has gained a lot of attention because because how your product looks and how functionable it is also defined by design, by the design team. How we'll see that in the coming phase. The design team is basically someone who's getting your idea to a form, and if and to see if it's the right form, to see it's to see what is a right form, it's decided by the design team itself. Then we're coming up to the marketing and analytics team. Marketing and analytics teams help with a market strategy. A go-to-market strategy is a really important strategy, and that is one thing I would say which can actually make your product successful for a long period of time. And we'll talk about it in the coming slides more. And while you're launching your product, you need a sales teams to be at hand, and you need them to be there for all the customers and for all kind of sale related things. So yes. Now that we have covered actually about what is product development process, we're actually breaking the product development process into 6 main stages. There can be many more. It can be broken down to a lot of different stages, but I've tried to cover all the stages in these 6 stages, right? So the first stage is of ideation and concept. You really need to ideate and define a problem statement for your product and see. So, like it's written here, that you need to quantify the need. That means you need to see really if your product is something that is a need of the market, or that that can solve a problem that is there in the market. If your product is only can only be used by 10 people out of 10,000, then your product is not worth making. Then we come to the second stage, that is the product research and validation stage. Here, actually, we're diving deeper into our product research and getting to know about the product. Also here we include, and here we start involving some external help. What kind of external help we're going to involve here? We'll see that in the coming slides. This is only a brief of all the 6 stages that we're going to see in the next slides. You also need to understand the market needs here, and market needs, overall cost required, and main features. So in the first stage, you're actually just defining what your product will do, but what will be the main features, what kind of different features you can add, and all of that is included in the second stage. Now that you've actually researched about your product well and you've included some external help, you will actually prototype whatever solutions you've gathered, or whatever insights you've gathered from your research. And that is how you make a prototyping MVP and come to the third step of the product development process. So what understanding MVP, I would like to throw in a question, and you have quite some time before you answer it. But I would like to know how many of you know what is an MVP, because it has 2 meanings and generally we take the wrong meaning. So it's as important as anything else. And let's see who's able to actually tell the real full form of MVP. Prototyping MVP is also the stage where you are releasing your first version of your entire product. And why the first version? Why are we like putting out the first version? We'll see that in the coming slides. Okay, so after we've prototyped and we have also, fulfilled some of the demands of our users, okay, Sandhya got it right. Yes, Sandhya, that is minimum viable product. There's also another task for you all. There's one other full form of MVP that is usually used, but it's not right. What is that? So the fourth stage of product development process is actually detailed design, and here you're actually discussing about the consistency your designs are going to have, because in the prototyping phase you were only seeing how usable it is and what all demands it is fulfilling of your users. But in the fourth step, you will actually try to beautify your products a bit, and you will try to maintain consistency overall. Coming on to the fifth step, and also the second last step, which is a really important step, it's validation and testing. So in the validation and testing phase, like we said, we're going to test the viability of the financials. In the prototyping phase, you do not have anything such as finances, such as marketing strategies. But in the validation and testing stage, you will actually see if the finances you've set for your product and the services and the cost of everything, are they even legible? Are they even correct? Are they competitive enough? All of that is going to be done in this step. This is also the second last step. So this is your last chance to actually align your vision and incorporate that in your product. And you see if your prototyping is going as planned. If it does not, you have this last chance to change it before it gets to the market. The last step is commercialization, which also where also it's really important to get your marketing and sales right, because if you're not having the right go-to market strategy, your product might not flourish enough. And you also define the next steps. Defining the next steps meaning what are you going to do after this? What stages of your product are going to be after this, and all of that. Before we move on to actually exploring all of these processes in detail, I would like to tell you something about the product development process, also applicable for design process and all other kind of other kind of processes. So no process that you talk about is linear in nature, and that means that no process, uh, there's no there's no rule as to that you have to do this first, you have to do this second, you have to do this third, and then you have to do this fourth, fifth, sixth. You can go as per your thing, but obviously there are some suggestions given to what should be done first, what should be done last, and in between maybe you can choose on your own. Coming on to our uh, first uh, first stage, it's the ideation and concept stage. Here you are going to conduct business analysis, you're going to conduct market research and measure technical and market risk. I would like to stop here and I would like to talk about what exactly is technical and market research risk. So whatever you're doing and whatever product you're making, it comes with a certain kind of risk. That risk is involved in technical and market terms. When we're talking about technical risk, it can be that you're introducing some kind of technologies or certain kind of technical stuff early in the market, which the users might not be able to adapt to. And if the users are not able to adapt to that technology, your product might fail. And then you're coming to the market risk. Supposedly, for example, if you are trying to go in a market that is too crowded, or if you're trying to go in a market that is um, not at all crowded, but it's decreasing, and you just want to boom it with your product. So you're not sure if it's going to really boom up or if you're going to fail like others too. So in this stage, you're actually measuring all kind of risk and all kind of analysis are done here. Yeah, this because this is the ideation step and defining the concept of your product. You also try to brainstorm the kind of product features you can add. Brainstorming helps, and apart from that, performing SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis is a strength, weakness, opportunity, and T I forgot. So yes, I'll tell you guys soon. But SWOT analysis you can perform, and that can help you define and conceptualize your product in a better way. Then here you're also trying to understand the target market, audience, and needs. Like I said, that you guys here are doing everything on your own. You before interacting and before going out in the market, you are just finalizing things from your end, and you guys are making sure that okay, is this product legible enough to be in the market? All right, product research and validation. When we talk about the step number 2, product research and validation, we're talking about diving deep into the market and finally using some external help to validate our product. Herein, we're trying to understand customer requirements, we're checking the viability of the proposed solution, and you're also developing marketing strategies and design ideas, right? So I would like to focus on the second point, that is the check viability of the proposed solution. So in the ideation and concept phase, you might have come across this problem statement and defined certain solutions to it. And here you are actually checking if those solutions are viable enough to go in the market and be successful. How can you make this process easier is by conducting market surveys. Market surveys can be, for us, market surveys can be in form of Google Forms, by taking feedbacks from uh, on whatever we have thought about the product so far, and by interacting with the stakeholders. Stakeholders are people who stakeholders are those people who are affected by your product. So there can be many types of stakeholders for one product, and you need to first identify those stakeholders in your ideation and concept phase, and then interact with them in this phase to actually see if you're going right in the right direction. And then you're also doing a competitive analysis. Competitive analysis helps you to actually know that how where does your product stand, and it can let you also know how your product is differentiated, and what is that one feature which can make your product go boom, right? Apart from that, you're also now starting to estimate the development costs, because if you remember, the next step is going to be about prototyping MVP, which for some cases needs some kind of cost. So in this stage, you're actually estimating all kind of costs that are going to be there in the whole development process. From I would also like to mention that from this step, you're going to be in touch with your users at every point. So in no step now, you are going to leave your users behind, and you have to try to actually interact with them at each point of stage, because the first stage clears the second stage, clears the third stage. So it's important for you to actually validate all your stages and see if you're not going anywhere wrong. Okay, prototyping MVP. Like Sandhya said, that MVP is exactly minimum viable product. What is a minimum viable product? We'll see that shortly as well. But here we need to prototype a minimum viable product. And what we are actually doing is we're experimenting with several versions of a product, and we're releasing that to the customers. So in the second step, what you did was you tried to take feedback, and you tried to see what kind of demands your users have. And now you've actually changed those demands into your minimum viable product, or you can say into the first version of your product, and then you're again releasing it to the customers to see if it's actually the one that matches with their demands. So like I said, that it's going to be a general discussion, and it's going to have all kind of products that are there in the market. So I am going to give you the examples of four kind of products that are there. um, so if you're having a baking product or something that you can do on your own, that is one kind of way you can prototype your minimum viable product. Then if you are opening a fashion store, or you're doing something that requires local team, you can take help of a local team. And if your product has something to do with physical products, then you can actually use 3D tools to prototype your physical products and get it out of the market. And then for web apps, for web applications, apps, and all these kind of things, what we have is called design tools to prototype your minimum viable product. I would also like to let you guys know that whatever you're prototyping should be in the form of your product, of your desired product. So if your product is a car, you cannot say that I just made a 3D model of my car and I want my users to test it. They cannot. So you would need to have some kind of physical car for your users to actually experience uh, in it and give you real feedbacks. Likewise, if you have some web app, you can for web apps, technically easier because you just have to do everything on laptop, and there are design tools which are making prototyping really simple and easy. um, by taking an example of a fashion store, and you're opening your own fashion store, and you just say that, see my designs and they're so cool, right? Or what do you think about them? That won't matter, because while you are designing clothes, what matters is there are, again, a lot of different things that matter, like the fabric you're using, the kind of accessories you're using with it, and other certain things. So that is why whatever thing that you're prototyping should be in the form of your desired product for your users to actually give you the real feedback. And now we're going to look at some of the resources. Sorry, before the resources, we're actually going to define what's a minimum viable product. I asked you guys the second meaning of MVP, and the second meaning of MVP is most valuable product, which all of us think that we need to provide to the market. But the fact of the matter is, guys, that when you're making a product, you cannot expect to make it with full efficiency, and you should not expect to have all the features in it. You can have your main features in it and get it tested by your users, and if and when they like it, you can start adding more features. So we'll read the definition of minimum viable product. It's a product with enough features to attract early adopter customers and validate a product idea early in the product development cycle, right? So with enough features to attract early adopter customers. So you need to have some main features definitely in the MVP, but you do not need to have all the features, because this is just a testing phase, and this is just a phase where you're actually just validating if the demands meet the product. I would also like to give some examples before moving on about some kind of MVPs that have gone and made themselves really big. If anyone has heard about Facebook, Facebook was first started when Mark started it. It was just he just made it available for his college, and it was not used by any other person. But then when it started gaining attraction, and when people really saw the need of it, he increased the production level, and he increased his um, production then. So that is what happens. You first check if your minimum viable product is actually suitable for a number of people, and if it is, then you start developing it further. You just do not start right away until and unless you are of a Google level where you can afford the cost involved um, in making these most valuable product, and in case they fail. Second example is of Amazon. Amazon started as an online bookstore. It did not start as something which sells everything, because if it would have started with something that sells everything, there would have been a lot of personal risk that Jeff had to be associated had to associate himself with. So whenever you're trying to get your products out there, just don't think about that I need to complete it fully to be able to for my users to understand my vision. You can you can manufacture it, or you can put out in the market with just the main features, and as and when you get more feedback, the good feedback, the bad feedback, you can make changes accordingly. So prototyping resources, um, where can you find a local team for an example of a fashion store that we talked about? And when while you're making a fabric, or while you're making MVP fabric, there are a lot of different things and processes involved with it, like maybe sewing, finishing, and so many other. So if you cannot do it on your own, you can give someone internship opportunities, or you can involve your friends and families, or you can find communities which are you can find communities, you can go there and you can find like-minded people there. If your product is something that has got to do with physical, um, what you can do is you can make a 3D model out of it. The 3D model at least gives a better look, and better understanding of the project of the product, even if you're not able to manufacture it on a greater level. Some tools you can use for the same are AutoCAD, SketchUp, Tinkercad, QuickParts, 3D hubs. Now, the physical products we are talking about, they're not just cars, right? They can be so many other physical kind of products. And physical products have been easier to prototype with the help of 3D printing. Yeah, now that 3D printing has been introduced, it's easier to actually make your MEP at a much lower cost and give it to your users for a full on experience for them to give you feedback. Then the UI tools, which will help make your design better of the web applications or the digital solution that you're providing. You can prototype your web apps, mobile apps, and everything with Figma, Adobe XD, Mockups, Sketch, Balsamic, and many other. But I believe these were the top ones. I'll take a question really fast. That is from Sandhya, and she asked me, "What is Figma?" So Sandhya, Figma is a tool where you can actually just design how you want your website or your digital solution to look like, and you can also prototype it, wherein you're introducing the user journey, how the user will go in your website. That can also be done in Figma. So Figma is a really useful tool in case you're having a digital solution. I hope that clears your question. Yes, it is a software available for free, and also it has a premium subscription with additional features for you to use in case you would want to. Definitely, need less. So coming on to our fourth step is the detailed design. So like we mentioned sometime back, that prototyping only confirms the fact that your product is usable. We do not actually look at the uh, aesthetic that much in that phase. We're more about aesthetics in this phase, because first like if you guys remember, we talked about how the product should be relevant, functionable, and then aesthetic looking. So that is how it's defined in the product development stage as well. And we come to the detailed design right now, wherein we are making all our design guidelines, and we're also implementing the user feedbacks we've got from the prototype stage. So there can be some difficulties which your users have faced in the prototyping phase, and maybe you can simplify them in this stage using better design and functionable design. Also, just to mention again, that the product development process is not just for designers and product managers. It also includes marketing team, analytics team, and the sales team. So right now, the marketing team is actually beginning to prioritize what kind of channels they want to market the product on, and And yes, this is also the beginning of the launch stage, because you're actually thinking about how you want your product to be launched in the market. Even though in the previous steps you have interacted with your audience, you've not interacted with the market. Your audience is a part of the market, but not the entire market. So how it's going to be launched in the market, that is this defined and decided in this stage itself. Then last thing is being consistent. And this means that you just need to be consistent in all kind of things. It's If it's a physical product, it needs to have the same kind of packaging, it needs to have same kind of features, and some colors that your product needs. It cannot have each and every color. So being consistent in everything is important in this step, and that is what you decide in this step. Okay, so this is our actually second last stage, wherein we are actually now validating and testing our product, and it's also near to the launch of our product. And here, what happens is we check the financial viability of a product. That just means that in the prototyping phase, you were just checking if your product is usable. And in the detailed design, you were actually beautifying your product, and making it usable and beautifying it has some cost attached to it, any kind of cost. So you're actually seeing if that cost that you've set for your product, is it viable? Is it competitive enough? Will people pay for the product price I have set? And it's also the last chance to make things right. So before commercializing it and before just getting your first version of the product into the market, this is actually your last chance to make things right. And how can you do that? You can do that by communicating well with your team, clients, and stakeholders. We'll be using the word communicating a lot in this entire process, because making a product successful is all about communicating, and not just external communications but internal as well. If you're not transparent with your entire team, the team might just be confused at some point. The team might not actually align with your vision. So it's important to communicate well with everyone that is there, everyone involved with your product. And then you're making the last optimizations wherever it is required, be it marketing strategies, be it design guidelines, be it how usable you want it to be. You're just trying to make everything optimized. And yes, and that gets us to our last stage, which is the commercialization stage. And here, the product's destiny is actually determined. Whatever you have done till now, it's actually necessary to determine the product of a destiny of a product. That means that if your fifth stage has failed, then that means that product is not viable. It cannot go into the market, and it's not ready for market, or that product has simply failed. But in case which is mostly the case, if your product has gone through all the stages and you've been able to set a right price, the right usability functions, the right design, the right marketing strategies, and everything right, then your product is going to launch in the market. And all kind of operations start, mainly herein the marketing and the sales team and the customer support, the manufacturing team, everyone gets into place, and they actually make it possible for it to be commercialized on a bigger level. Because like we said, that whoever you're getting your product tested with, they're not your market, they're a part of your market. There may be 1% of your market, there may be 0.1% of your market, but they're not your entire market, right? Mm. And how can you actually make commercialization the right way? And commercialization starts with communicating your vision. So you actually need to see if you are communicating whatever you want the people to know in the right way. The right go-to market strategy can be a game changer. We'll come back to it in just 1 second. And you need to make sure that if your product is some kind of new technology that is being introduced, or if your product is something that would require customer support, do you have enough customer support, or can you handle it yourself? And lastly, making it accessible. You just need to make your product accessible to everyone. You need to make sure that they are built in with all kind of specifications and all kind of limitations that humans can face. And making it accessible means making it uh, for the handicap, making it. Sorry, Amna, could you repeat your question? Right. So till then, I'll go ahead, and I would like to come back to the right go-to-market strategy. The right go-to-market strategy can be a game changer. And when I say that, I mean that, you know, there are so many conflicting brands in the ecosystem. There are two brands that are top brands for shoes, Nike and Adidas. There are so many social media sites, and so many social media sites which are striving but not yet popular, but they're still striving. That means they matter, right? So why are the same kind of products thriving in the market? Because of the go-to market strategy. How you place yourself in your market changes everything about you. Even though your product might be the same, everything can change if you have a different vision, if you have the right communication skills, and if you tell your audience everything in the right way. So go to market strategy is something that you should definitely look after. And it's the same like saying that, you know, there are ration stores, and then there's some thing like Walmart, something like Target, which is also which also does the work of ration stores, but it has made a full chain just by having a good go-to market strategy. Hmm. Now that we have discussed about product development process, and you also covered briefly about the design process, we will look about some of the major things in design here as well. Again, there will be definitely something new, and do let me know in case of any questions. Now that we are over with our product development phase, if you have any kind of questions, or how can you, any kind of thoughts, pin them in the chat. I'll just see one question that one of the persons. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, Amna, for repeating that. And I have used Canva actually to make my presentations. Now that you guys can type in your questions as and when we go. No, actually, product development is not a part of design process. Design process is a part of product development process, because, like you mentioned, that product development has all kind of teams: the product team, the design team, the marketing sales team, analytics team, all kind of teams. So, design process is actually a part of product development. Okay. So the design process, like the product development process, uh, I mean, like the build up, it's made by Canva. Is that what you're asking, Amna? let me know. I'll be constantly looking for your comments. So design process, like product development process, is iterative in nature. It's collaborative. It's a collaborative effort. You cannot do everything on your own. And after one point, because the more people you have, the more solutions you will have, the more ideas you will have, and the better the work will be. Communication, important during everything that you're doing. Communication is the go-to step to make things better, to make your team better, to make that internal environment better, to make your go-to market strategy better. So communication is an integral part of our lives, and it can mess up with our relations, it can mess up with everything, and likewise it can mess up with your products as well. So defining design process, the process of imagining, creating, and iterating products that solve users' problems or address specific needs in a given market. The design process is not so different from a product development process, and it actually focuses on creating and iterating products which are solving user problems. And in the definition itself, the iterating word is being used, so you can see how these processes are actually they do not stop after you have launched in the market. You have to make certain versions, and you have to constantly develop your product. If you're not developing your product might not sustain in the market, just like it happened some years back for Facebook. Facebook in some markets decreased a lot, and recently, because of its name change, it has gotten back up. But because of its tendency of not changing and for not adopting to the latest trends that are there, and not understanding its user well, it was not able to sustain in some markets. My favorite designer is not Johnny Ive. It's definitely Paul Rand. And as a design thinker, I also like Steve Jobs a lot. Okay, coming to the design process that we are going to talk about. It's a very famous design process, and it's called EDIPT. EDIPT is an abbreviation for empathize, define, ideate, P for prototype, and T for testing. So this process involves observing, engaging, and empathizing with people to understand their experiences and motivations. So design process actually involves looking at the users in a more specific way. When you're talking about product development, when you're talking about marketing team, when you're talking about the product team is overlooking at the product side of things, how that what similar products are there. The user team, however, the design team, is focusing mainly on users, and they make or break the product, because users are an integral part of your product. And if they're not satisfied, and if you cannot understand them well, nothing would work, right? And the marketing team, they also do some kind of analysis, but whatever analysis that they are doing, it refers to they're comparing markets. Product team compares products, and user team, the design team, user design team, they're comparing and they're seeing how users behave to competitive products. So yes. So I would also like to tell that empathizing is a really integral part of this whole process. If you're not going and getting there in your market, you won't actually understand your user. So it's definitely important for you to be present in the market in which you're making a product, for your product to actually have those feelings in form of a product. Okay. So, two fundamental rules of design. There are two major fundamental rules of design, and the subtitle says the product form should reflect its function, and that generally means, and that basically means that the form of a product, say a table, it should reflect the function that it has been made for. So you cannot just say that, hey, this is a table and it's made for you to sit on for hours, and it will make you happy. It will give you a happy experience. A table used for sitting on for hours won't give a user a happy experience, because the back may ache, and simply because it's not made for that function, right? A table is made to keep things on, not to sit for long hours. It's a chair that is made for sitting on for long hours. So your form, whatever form you're choosing your product to be, it should reflect the kind of function that you want it to perform. Okay, so the two fundamental rules of design. The first rule is the function rule, and the second rule is the form rule. The function rule defines that what your product is actually doing, and that you already have in mind, right? That maybe you want to create a thing that people can sit on. So that is the function that you're defining. And then the form rule, it defines how the product is performing its function. And then you make a chair to perform that function that you've defined. The function rule also, it should be, it must fulfill all the design requirements uniformly, while the form rule, it should have the shortest production path. When we talk about shortest production path in form of physical products, it means that your product should be easy, accessible, and it should be simple to make. The next we come to design is the process. So how these two functions are related to design, that we'll see in the this line here. And it says that design is the process of mapping function to form, and design is the medium of um, of merging that function you have in mind and making it to a form. That is what design helps you to do. It's a medium for between your function and form. We'll see one last thing, that is the form follows function. So this is a term or the phrase which was originally coined by an architect called Louis Sullivan. It was in the late 1800s. And it was mainly made for architecture design, but it has since then, and since designers got to know its use in all kind of design forms, all kind of product forms, it has been used there as well. So what do I actually mean by form follows function? So what happens is, I have given you a box and I have not told you what it does or what can it be used for, and you're just confused. What? Or you might just think that the simple box is used for keeping things. And but if I define a function, that is, maybe it's a pizza box, maybe it's a jewelry box, maybe it's a pencil box, then the kind of form your function needs to have, that will be more clear to you as well. So always form follows function. And I would like to show you all a small video which I really liked, of some of the examples of how product designers are actually incorporating this phrase into their designs as well. I would like for you all to I would like to know if you guys can see my if you guys can see my listen to my laptop's voice as well. Is it audible, my laptop's voice? Okay. All right. I'll have to.
Of form follows function. We're going to be looking
Is it
at
audible now?
everything from the smallest of products to
Yes,
large
great. Okay.
scale architecture. Hey guys, it's Morna, and in this video, I wanted to share with you favorite, that's my bird. There you go. 5 different examples of form follows function. We're going to be looking at everything from the smallest of products to large scale architectural building. Now, each one of these designers has really looked at and thought about the purpose their product or building serves. This clarity of purpose means that they've been able to find a precise form to fit that circumstance. Number 1 is the Vis spiral eraser from Metaphys. If we think about the purpose of an eraser, it's to erase a pencil mark. And if we look a little bit deeper as to
Apologies.
what kind of marks pencils make, well, typically they are relatively thin lines. And this kind of spiral form seems like a perfect match to be able to erase with precision. It's a form that will always be sharp because you can constantly be using the spiral, be erasing around the spiral. Number 2 is this product, which is called the Well watering can. So there's 2 details on this product that make me think of form follows function. The first is the handle. What makes it so good is when you pick it up. The handle fits between the curve of your thumb and hand perfectly. It's such a small but considerate detail. You can see the difference between something that is completely flat versus this handle, which has a curved surface. The second thing is this top surface. If you've ever tried to fill up a watering can and miss the hole, you will appreciate this design. What I love about this surface is the form is shaped like a funnel. So water is guided into the watering can. You can aim the water kind of anywhere on this top surface and it will flow into the watering can. Now, this is within reason, and if the water pressure is high, it will overflow. But when I discovered these details, it just makes me know that someone was really thinking about the experience of using this watering can. Number 3 is this product, which is called Hope Forever Blossoming by Debros. This is a plastic vase with printed graphic. You may be asking how this relates to form follows function. Well, the form of this vase is collapsible. How does that show its purpose? Well, the purpose of this vase is transitory. It changes from 2D to 3D. This is similar to the nature of fresh flowers. They only last a fixed amount of time. So when you need a vase, it can be unfolded and water and flowers can be added. And then when you don't need the vase, it can be collapsed and slide away in a drawer or cupboard. So I have a question for you. Have you come across a product that really shows this concept? Form follows function in a product. It could be the overall form, it could be some aspect of that product, but I'd love to hear it and let me know down below in the comments. Number 4 is this product, which is a spoon, a cooking spoon, and it's from a company called Dream Farm. It solves a common issue with using any kind of mixing spoon in the kitchen, and that is the spoon gets dirty as you're using it, but you still need it, so it doesn't make sense to get a new one. And one option is you can put the spoon on a saucer so the counter doesn't get dirty. But this spoon has taken into account all of these different actions. You don't actually need a saucer. With this spoon, it's not an issue because the form lifts the dirty part of the spoon off the counter. The form that creates this effect could be described as like a line with a squiggle in it. It shows the purpose in a very simple way. You see the squiggle will interfere with the countertop before the red part of the scoop. And when I first saw this in a shop, I immediately knew what its purpose was. Number 5 is the Guggenheim Museum, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright in New York. It's a great example of form follows function, and if you ever get a chance to go, I highly recommend it. Frank Lloyd Wright actually worked for the architect Louis Sullivan, who was actually the first person who coined the term form follows function. Frank Lloyd Wright's vision for how people would use this building, aka the purpose of this building, was that people would take the elevator to the top and enjoy a kind of continuous art viewing experience when going down the spiral ramp. I've been to this museum a couple times, and my experience was not only was this like a continuous art viewing experience, but it was also a continuous people viewing experience. And it was like watching other people look at art while I was looking at art experience. Frank Lloyd Wright's intention was a continuous art viewing experience. The spiral is a perfect form to achieve that. It's continuous. It's a line moving up through space, right? That's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.
I would like to stop here, and I would just love for all of you, whoever is here, for us to actually tell what you guys learned from the video. And which was your favorite product? Thank you, Sameer. I'm glad you I hope you were able to take some nice insights from it and you learned something new today. Just we're at the last part of our webinar, and here I would just like for That's really sweet of you to say, Sameer. Now that we have looked at some examples of form follow function, and we've actually seen its implementation not just in architectural design, but also in products, in physical products. We know how important this is, and we just know how our purpose, our clear purpose, can help us define our form, which will then give rise to the function that we want for it to perform. Like I said, it's the last part we're hitting, and I would like to summarize all of the things that we've talked about today, and starting with how we need to analyze our problem statement, and we just need to quantify the problem. Quantification of problem is one of the most important things in this step. Coming to the next step is researching, planning, and empathizing with your users. Empathizing cannot happen if you are not directly going into that market of yours and interacting with the users. So herein you get users into the picture, and from herein till the end, you are in touch with your users. Then obviously you're prototyping or you're designing to communicate your vision and to communicate the demands that you have got from interacting with your users in the second phase, which gets us to our fourth stage, wherein it's really important to be proactive in taking feedbacks. And then finally, we come to our last stage, wherein we are hopefully ready to launch our product to the market. Just some tips here and too. And sometimes we're hard on ourselves and we're doing a lot of research and development. But like we discussed about, and remember that your product does not need to be really good or perfect, I would say, to be launched in the market. You can have some main features and launch it late and develop it as you go and as the user demand increases. That gets us to the last part of the session, wherein, if you guys want, you guys can connect with me on LinkedIn, mail, or on GitHub using the following links. And I'll also be putting all the presentations and some pointers in my GitHub account. So in case you're interested to look at the presentation or go through the points again, you can definitely check out my GitHub account. That's yes.
I guess it would be better if you drop your LinkedIn and GitHub account in the chat box.
All right, sure, I can. Give me 1 minute. Okay, M. Takir says that spiral raisin one is a cool one. I definitely agree. It was cool for me as well. I'll just share. I'll just stop sharing. Thank you, Abdul, and thank you everyone for joining and being here till the very end. It was really amazing and it was first-hand experience for me as well to share everything I have learned in the journey with you guys. So with you, I have learned and explored about me as well. Thank you for giving me that opportunity, Hatma.
Thank you so much. The pleasure was all mine. You were great today. I really enjoyed your session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm at GitHub and LinkedIn in case you want to connect. And I'll be hopefully seeing you around. Until next time, guys. Bye.
Sure. Thank you. Take care.